This is the first lecture in a series under the auspices of the Medgaver's Elevate the Lecture Series, and we are so delighted that you are here with us this morning. I know there will be others coming in, so we want to start fairly well on time because we have a time frame that we are dealing with. But thank all of you for coming, and I noticed that all of you have notebooks and pens and paper, and I'm sure that your professors told you to ask really cogent questions and take notes as you listen to our panel of experts this morning, because I'm sure there will be a quiz at some point during the semester. So please take the notes. This topic that we have selected this morning is very relevant, one that, of course, is not only a local concern, but really a national concern and an international concern, because we are looking really at an issue that has implications for the entire country. And I'm delighted that we are having this discussion this morning at Jackson State. The outcome of black males in urban institutions, a national catastrophe or a local concern, and I guess it could be an international concern, quite frankly. But we're delighted. Young people, as you come in, please come down to the front because we are giving away prizes on the front. So come pick up your prize before you leave. The closer you get to the front, the larger the prize is. So please come in. And let me also thank all of the professors that have invited their classes to come, and all of the professors who have actually come with their classes. Thank you very much for bringing your students. We really appreciate that. And then we have some special guests from Blackburn Middle School, the top performing students from Blackburn and their professor. Are the Blackburn students here yet? Will the Blackburn student please stand? And thank you, and their professors, the teachers with them. Would you please stand and tell us who you are?
My name is Moretta Carter. I'm the principal of Blackburn Middle School. We thank you very much for having us here.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming. Brother?
Kane, 8th grade social.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank all of you very much. And do we have the Minority Male Leadership Institute from Hines Community College? Any of those people here?
They're still on their way.
They're on their way. Okay. Well, as soon as they arrive, let us know so we can recognize them. But again, let me thank all of the Jackson State University faculty members and staff members for inviting and bringing your classes this morning. We really appreciate it, and we want to let y'all know that we will try to make sure that we work with you throughout the academic year as you work with us. We're going to have, first off this morning, greetings from Dr. Thomas C. Calhoun, who is the interim dean of the College of Liberal Arts here at Jackson State and was just elected incoming president of all of the black sociologists in the world, including the ones in the United States of America. So let's give Dr. Calhoun a rousing round of applause.
Thank you, Dr. McLemore, and welcome everybody to the College of Liberal Arts. We refer to our college as the College of Culture. This is where diversity meets excellence. The lecture series today is a very important lecture series, and I do hope that all of you will enjoy it and learn from what is being said. I looked at the title for the lecture series and I thought to myself, is it a national catastrophe or is it of local concern? My conclusion is that it's both. The fate of African Americans, and particularly that of African American males in urban institutions, is absolutely critical. I don't know whether you've recognized it or not. When you look at the economy, you look at the number of jobs that are lost, that are unfilled, and you look at the level of education of our African American brothers and sisters. That has to change, because as you know so well, that if you do not prepare yourself for the 21st century, you will be left behind. The train is going to leave you. And one of the things that we also know when we look at incarceration rates is that we are overrepresented in our prison populations. Now, let no one kid you that if you are not prepared to succeed in this society by the rules by which they establish, they will build more prisons to hold you. And you know also that once you leave prison, your chances of getting a job are going to be slim to none, because you will carry the stigma of a convicted felon. So this is a very, very important series, and I hope that you take the discussion very, very seriously, and that we can not only talk about the problems, but we can begin to identify solutions to address the problem. Again, welcome on the part of the College of Liberal Arts, and if my office can assist any of you in anything, please let me know, and welcome again.
Thank you, Dr. Calhoun. I don't see the superintendent of JPS. He hasn't arrived yet, and I'm sure he's on his way. Keith, the 2-minute video. Okay. I want to do that now, please. Oh, young people, as you come in, please come down to the front, because we are awarding prizes. The front, the closer you get, the bigger the prize is, so you might want to just come to the front row and take advantage of the prize. You have to be a speed reader to keep up with it. And I know all of you young people are smart and bright and can speed read. It was really tough for me, but we can do it again later on. The problem this morning really is, and I think Dean Calhoun really sort of nailed it on the head from the standpoint, not only are we going to talk about this problem, but clearly, as the quick video pointed out, we need to come up with some solutions to this problem. So as we dialogue and raise concerns about this, really the lack of participation by African American men in the higher education institutions or in K-12 institutions, because the alarming dropout rate that we have is something obviously that we're all concerned with. So young people, as you come in, please come down to the front. I'll repeat this again. We are awarding major prizes if you come to the front. And there are several seats on the front row here. Just please come down. We're delighted that all of you are here. And again, let me thank the professors and the staff members of Jackson State and JPS and Hines Community College for inviting students to come to this important discussion this morning. We could not be discussing a more important issue, because this is an issue of grave national security. We not only have to recruit and get more males in college, but we also have to make sure that they are retained and that they graduate. Because the key is coming to Jackson State and not only coming and spending 3 years or 4 years or 5 years here, in some cases 6 years, but the idea is at some point you need to graduate. And I'm sure all of the Jackson State students are on schedule to graduate real soon. So graduate, that's the key. Okay, so let's begin our discussion. I'm going to introduce all the panel members at once, and I've asked the panel members, and I'm asking them now actually, to devote about 10 minutes to that discussion so we can leave lots of time for questions and answers from you, and we would like to have as much of a dialogue and a conversation as possible. So that's why I'm going to ask the panel presenters to confine their remarks to 10 minutes, which is very difficult for, because we have a couple of college professors on this panel, and I know that's very, very hard, because we are accustomed to talking for at least an hour and 20 minutes. So this morning, we will not have that luxury. Our first panel member is Mr. Castillo Baptiste, who is the founder and executive director of Fathers Active in Their Hoods, Inc., Faith. Ms. Shauna Davey, who is director of Education Initiatives for the United Way of the Capital Area. And as I recall, I think she is a political science, or was a political science graduate student who now has a master's degree in political science and is going to enroll in a doctoral program very soon. I'm reading this, okay. And our next presenter is Dr. Johnny Griffin, assistant professor of sociology here at Jackson State, and a very, very good friend of the Haim Institute and one of our long-term supporters. And finally, Dr. Rodney Washington, who is chair and associate professor of elementary and early childhood education here at Jackson State. And we're going to start first with Mr. Baptiste, and you may sit there or you may stand, either way you want to present. Please do that. But let's give all of the panelists, please say a word aloud now. I've been informed by Mr. Baptiste, because he didn't want to speak first, that the superintendent just arrived. ready to speak right now. So we have with us this morning, and we're delighted to have with us the newly minted superintendent of JPS, the Reverend Dr. Cedric Gray. Let's give him a hand.
That teach you to being late, right? You have to walk right up and speak. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hello.
Wave at me. All right. You do me a favor? Everybody just stand. Would you just stand? All right, great, thank you. So now it can be said that even with my shortcomings, I brought you to your feet. Right, so I don't know. First, I beg your forgiveness. I just left a chamber meeting, and I told them I needed to get out of there. I needed just give me 5 minutes. I'm in and out, and it turned into 20. So I beg your forgiveness for my tardiness. We don't normally run behind, but sometimes the work dictates that such. I don't mind at all. Thank you. Don't. I'm trying to tell you. Don't tell me. Preaching on a microphone is going to take more than 2 seconds, right? This is not Sunday, but it's always Sunday in my heart. So I see a couple bow ties. Wave at me, bow tie wearers. Great. We represent the 5%ers. Thank you, sir. Everybody else chasing, okay? My name is Cedric Gray. I'm lead teacher for Jackson Public Schools and honored to be here. I'm going to let the panel do what the panel does and chime in where appropriate. But what's important for you to know, I think, about me in terms of our subject matter is it's very near and dear to my heart. And I'll tell you about Jermaine, and I'm going to sit down, and hopefully we'll be talking about Jermaine today. Way back in my first assignment as a teacher at Douglas Elementary School in Memphis, Tennessee, my second year as teaching, I was teaching 6th grade. And I had the privilege of teaching a student whose name is Jermaine. Jermaine came to my 6th grade classroom reading on a 1st grade level. Y'all hear me?
Yeah.
He left our classroom reading on a 3.5 grade level.
That's all right.
He had 2.5 years of growth in 1 year. Now, I contribute a lot of that, of course, to the grace of God. More importantly, though, not necessarily to curriculum, and not necessarily to my teaching prowess in the 2nd year of teaching, but the fact that I was able to instill within him a higher sense of worth that he had for himself. In other words, I thought that he can do better than he thought he could do. And so all of it really was about expectations. And for me, that's what this conversation will surround. What are our expectations for our own folk? Y'all got that, right? How are we presenting ourselves to make sure that not only we look out for one another, but we are truly and indeed our brothers and sisters' keeper? All right, so it's my honor to be here. I'm looking forward to the conversation. And next time I'll be on time so I don't have to speak as I walk in the door. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Dr. Gray. Mr. Baptiste is ready to speak now. Okay, let's give him a rousing round of applause. Come on.
How's everybody doing this morning? Mr. Keith, you tricked me. I just thought I was just going to be asked questions and going to answer them. So I'm not going to take 10 minutes. But Dr. McLemore brought up a great point. I call this we're in a state of emergency. And when we talk about a state of emergency is a government declaration of something has happened, it's a disaster. And that's what we're in with black males. So imagine if 80% of the children in special education classes were white males. Okay? Imagine 40% of white males were illiterate. Imagine if only 47% of white males graduated from high school. If the future prison population was determined by white males' third grade reading scores, do you think they would call the state of emergency? I think so. What about if 2 out of every 3 white males were projected to be involved in the penal system? If white males were 13% of the population, but 67% of juveniles in adult courts and 77% of juveniles in adult prison. And if homicide was the leading cause of death among white males aged 15 to 34, I think America would call it a state of emergency. Well, the statistics that I just read out to you all are statistics that is black males. So I asked myself, well, why we have not, and I say why we have not declared a state of emergency for our black males. And so with the topic today, I took 4 points. Systematic problems of why black males are not graduating from college, the long-term effects, the holistic needs of black males to keep them in college, but also, like Dr. McCoy mentioned, making sure they get degrees, and activities to assist in the retention. Why do black males not graduate from college? Anybody? And what are some of the reasons why we feel like black males don't graduate from college? Young man over there. You drop out? Okay. Hey, that's it. What's some of the reasons? Give me. Yes, sir. Get involved in the wrong things. Yes, ma'am.
Some young men don't have like the guidance that other young men have at home with their mothers or fathers, so they drop out because they don't have it.
Exactly. Give me one more. Yes, ma'am.
Pressure from their peers not to do the right thing, but to follow instead.
And you all are correct. And those are some of the systematic things that it causes. A lot of black males have difficult adjusting to college life because, like the young lady mentioned, don't have their system already in place. You know, taking myself, come from a single-parent home, from the Mississippi Delta. The first person on my entire family to actually go to college. So I wasn't prepared even when I decided to go to college. I didn't know what college was. I had no one to sit down with me and talk to me what college life was going to be like. Okay? So, also, the young lady mentioned mentors. We're looking at 87% of our boys being raised in single-parent homes. Not saying single mothers can't do it, but as a male, I need a man there to talk to me about, okay, what I need to go further in my career. Okay? Also, I became a father at the age of 18, and my freshman year in college. So those are some of the family issues that cause a young man to actually drop out. When I found out I was a father, I had people telling me, well, you need to drop out and go to work. Well, I'm going to share a story with y'all. My first job was chopping cotton. I just told y'all I was a Mississippi Delta. I'm a little dude. I knew I wasn't meant for manual labor. I knew the only way I was going to make a career, I got to be smart. I was not meant for manual labor. And I think God knew that too. So I knew I was going to college and I was going to stay in college. And when I designed a program, I took what I needed. And I designed a program called Father's Acumen and Abilities. And the program is designed to work with young men from elementary all the way up to college. And it's a transitional program. Because that's one thing that we fail to look at is like, okay, we have programs for middle school boys, but what happens to those middle school boys once they hit high school? What happens to the high school males once they go into college? So, systematic problem. African American knowledge of code of the street. Some of my boys feel like, look, I'm a thug. You know, I mean, I gotta know the code of the street. Me going to college is not gonna feed my family right now, and that's realistic. We have a lot of young men who's smart enough to go to college, but guess what? Because of the environment that they're in, they are afraid to go to college because, once again, I had a cousin who went to prison. Well, when he got out of prison, you know what the community did for him? Threw him a party. When I got my degree, you know what they told me? Nigga, you ain't smart. So we gotta understand, it's a code that our boys are coming out of the neighborhoods. And so, how do we keep them to keep that code, but also how do we keep them to understand that, once again, Dr. McMorrow, you're not gonna be where you need to be unless you get a college degree. Some of the young men is not prepared once they leave high school. Forget that. Some of our young men are not prepared once they leave elementary school. And so if they determine prison population by 3rd grade reading schools, they already have told us, look, if you don't have it by the 3rd grade, you're not going to get it. What do? We funnel them along until they get to high school, because to be honest with you, by a young man when he gets to junior high, he's waiting until he gets 60. If he's already made up his mind, if he's dropping out of high school. So he's waiting until his 17-year birthday. And so you know what? Once I get 17, I'm grown, I can leave. So a lot of our young men is not even prepared. So we're asking them to get college degrees, but we're not preparing them even in elementary school.
Hold that mic for me.
All right, long-term effects. Okay, what are the long-term effects? One thing that I look at, the long-term effects of a young man dropping out of college, is actually more detrimental to drop out of college than it is to drop out of high school. That's why. All right, you drop out of high school, you still got an opportunity to go get your GED and then to go on to college. Well, a lot of young men, once they out of college a year, they no longer go back. You ask yourself why? Well, you've acquired a debt once you drop out. So now, for you to get back in school, you have to pay that debt off, then find money to continue your education. So, for the young men who's dropped out and they have their debt, guess what? Well, I'm in a situation now, I'm not prepared to purchase a home. And I still got to pay this loan off. So the job that I'm making is not, I don't have a college degree, so the money that I'm making now is not even enough money for me to pay off the debt, even provide for my family. So we stress dropping out of high school, but also it's more detrimental to drop out of college. And so we have to give our young men opportunities, and we have to give them, we have to change the whole culture of you have to go to college. Because guess what? Some of y'all mechanics make more money than y'all. I'm just being honest. We're in a college, we're in an institution, but we have to give our young men options. Because we know there's going to be some young men who are smart enough to go to college, but do not want to. So what are we going to do with them? We have to put them on track, and we have to give them alternatives. All right. I'm going to talk to you about a program called King's Institute. And this program is geared toward college men and to help them stay into college. Okay. It's a program I designed, and it's a transitional from the young men who's in the high school program into the college. So the goals: to gain access to resources to support and sustain academic success. A lot of our young men, once they come here, they have no support system. We already declared it. And you know the sad thing is a lot of our young men is going to come here, and I apologize for all y'all who's in the fraternity. We have a lot of young men who's going to come here and join a fraternity, but will not get a college degree. Joining a fraternity is an incentive. And I'm talking to all the fraternities in here. If you have a young man that's in your fraternity that his grades dropped, I know some brothers who, when I was in college, was at 3.5. When they started pledging, GPA dropped to 2.0s. So we have to get our fraternities and our fraternities and our organizations to continue to support those young brothers, not just when they get ready to join your fraternity, but continue their support. Central place in which they can go for information. Not just, a lot of our young men are, afraid that sometimes to ask questions and to go get information. Well, we need to have a support group for those young men that's on college. They can go directly to a place where they can get from male counterparts, male counselors. Business seminars. We got to prepare them outside of, even when they get ready to, once they graduate from college. What are they going to do next? Whole business seminars. Because we walk around here, a lot of our young men, I don't know about y'all, but when I walk on college campuses today, and I'm working on my master's, when I walk on college campus today, it's like I'm on 106 and Park. I mean, just being real. It's like I'm on 106 and Park. So how do we get them prepared, not just, when they understand what they're going into, but how do we get them in the business aspects of, okay, this is the degree that you decide, how do we get them to further? I designed a thing called That'll Be Kane Speaker Series, where young men can come together and college males can come together on a regular basis and discuss certain issues that they're dealing with, from mentally, spiritually, family situations. I work with a lot of young fathers. A lot of our young men don't know what happens, to me when I become a father. So when do we have opportunity for these young men to get together to have their support? Because if this is one of the things that's causing them to drop out of college, then they need to have a support saying that, okay, you know what, you need to be there. A lot of them are not going to be like me, understand that you're not fit for manual labor. So we need to have it. A dream team. What I call a dream team is, well, these young men, we can have 5 guys that they can support these guys. Mentors, and not people that we choose. It's people that they choose. That you have 5 people that we call your dream team that they're going to make sure that you make it through college.
45 seconds, Mr. Teacher.
All right. Workshops. Continuing workshops for these young men. My recommendation is a preparation program for K-12 and post-secondary profession. Connecting black male teens and effective college preparatory experience. Removal of financial barriers to college success. Building summer bridge programs to students for success. Get them on college before they even start. Assuming institutional responsibility for black male student engagement. And provide bonding, brotherly bonding, and peer support for these young men. Thank you.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good morning.
It is so wonderful to see all of you here. I mean, I'm excited, I'm nervous. I know my students don't believe that, but I am. Okay, and I'm gonna speak fast and try to get some points out. And one thing I'd like to say is that here at Jackson State, we are talking about challenging minds and changing lives. And I believe when I hear that, it means challenging minds of everybody, not just the students, faculty members, administrators, and hopefully as we're challenging these minds, we are changing lives of all of us. Also, we talk a lot about critically thinking. And I try to teach my students, how do you critically think? What do you think about it? What perspective do you think about it? What context do you think? So as we talk, I want you all to think a lot about thinking about what we're saying rather than agreeing or disagreeing. Think that before, whatever you hear us say, before you hear anybody say whatever they're saying, think before you agree or disagree. because we all don't have the same like mind. We all don't have the same experiences. We all don't have the same aspirations. So I'm going to start talking very briefly about the discourse. The title of this is "The Outcome of Black Males in Urban Institutions, a National Catastrophe or Local Concern." And I'm going to focus on the study, and of course I went and got the study that this is based on. And the study was conducted by the Council of the Great City Schools. It's a coalition of 65 of the nation's largest urban schools, and is located in Washington, D.C. The results of the council studies are presented in this paper titled "A Call for Change, the Social and Educational Factor Contributing to the Outcomes of Black Males in Urban Schools." To get a complete picture of the issues, according to the study, the researchers looked at the reading and math achievement of the 4th and 8th grade black males in large city schools. I want you to think about what we're talking about. We're talking about urban schools. We're talking about large city schools. Keep that in mind. One of the issues I find problematic, agree or disagree, don't think about that, with this report is that it generalizes its findings nationally, which I believe are contributing factors to the apparent so-called crisis of black males, which I also believe lead to the internalization of negativism that are inhibitors to self-actualization and success. I want to approach the phenomenon of the so-called crisis of black males by looking at what I call a trail of two suns, the effects of negative labeling on social mobility and self-confidence. I'd like to start off by defining what is meant by labeling, which is an item used to identify something or someone. Labeling people refers to a form of prejudice and discrimination where a person allocates names to people on the basis of nationality, religion, ethnicity, gender, etc. Labeling people represents a way of differentiating and identifying people. The labeling theory was developed by sociologists during the 60s, focusing on the tendencies of the so-called majorities to negatively label so-called minorities to those seen to be as deviant from standard cultural norms, for example, achieving high levels of academic accomplishments or taking advantage of opportunities. The language that you hear when you hear the labeling, the reason I'm really taking this very personally is because I'm the mother of two sons. They're grown, and I had to live with my sons as they heard all of the negativisms. And I had to fight their minds, fight them to keep them from internalizing all the language that they heard at the time. They heard about lack of opportunities. They heard about infant mortality, health care, single-parent homes, unemployment. There's no jobs out there, no jobs. You're living in poverty, you can't make it. The odds are against you. You're a welfare recipient. If you're a welfare recipient, something's wrong. You live in a bad neighborhood. Some people call them monsters, call them failures. You hear statistics saying you're as likely to do this. You're not as likely to that. So you have all this negativism, all this negativism. What is it like to be a parent living with sons who are hearing these and who what you're trying to say, you can do this, you can do that. You keep them in an environment where they can see. And remember, if we look at our history, you see where black men and women have done lots of things. And we need to think about what stopped us from doing what has already been done. Our black folk did more with less, and we're doing less with more. They had more odds against them, but look at what they achieved. So I'm talking about changing the paradigm of how we approach this situation and how we talk to our black males. Now, my two sons, one's named Chester, one's named David. David has come to my class, so some of my students know it. They both, then you know, if you have more than two children, anybody with more than two children, you know they're not exactly the same. All right? You put the same food there, they don't eat the same amount of food. However, you've tried to expose them, or I tried to expose them, to many, many things in life. We lived in the D.C. area for 26 years. They saw so much. They traveled all over the country. They had every kind of role model that you can imagine. Yet and still, one son did not believe all of what people were saying. They were saying things like, don't go to college because you can't get a job. They were hearing things like, don't join the military because you go crazy. College is not for everybody, so I don't need to go. There are more y'all in jail than going to college. Some folks I know got a degree and don't have a job. There are no jobs. They kept hearing all these negatives. And the one negative that I heard that really gets me is to have those folk who made it say, I got mine, you got yours to get. If you are saying this to our black males or black women or anybody, what are you doing to them internally? What are you saying to them? But like I said, you had folk, our folk, other folk doing more with less. And we're doing less with more. Then in defining what is meant by social mobility, it's the ability of individuals or groups to move within a social hierarchy with changes in income, occupation, education, et cetera, or at least trying to raise the SES, what your life chances. A lot of folks say, well, the reason we're having problems is because of integration. I say no, it's because of VIPization. Folks got jobs and started looking their noses down on other folk. I got mine, you got yours to get. We have young men and women in school right now who need our personal attention. They need a personal pat on the back. They need to hear over and over, you can do, not who's going to stop you from doing what it is that's out there for you to do. Like I said, it's about agreeing or disagreeing. You don't have to agree with me. Just think about what I'm saying. But when you are a mother, and I am a mother of 2 grown sons, and David, the younger one, did go to the military. He did go and get his college degree. Chester, he lives in a sense of at least. For years he would tell me, well, at least I didn't get off on drugs. Well, at least I didn't go to jail. Well, at least I didn't do this. He kept saying, at least, at least. I heard him for years saying, at least. Just recently, I said, you know, I'm so tired of hearing you say at least. I said, you know, you're as smarter than a lot of guys I have in my class. You need to be in school. I said, why don't you start saying at most? At most. He's been saying, at least I'm not, at least for all the negatives that he's been hearing, well, at least I'm not this, at least I'm not that. Think about whether you're saying at least. Self-confidence, faith in self, acceptance of oneself, pleased with self, freedom from doubt, belief in yourself, self-assurance, self-respect, believe in and trust in your own power. Now, where do you hear all this negative stuff? You hear it at home, you hear it at school, you hear it at church. They even got billboards with negative stuff on it. So what are you going to do? You're going to turn this around, and you're going to start being more positive, no matter what the statistics say. And they're going to take a statistic where they've looked at 4th and 8th graders from about 18 different states, and they're going to take this, and then we do this with stats. We generalize it. That means that you consider yourself a minority wherever you are. You consider yourself in danger no matter where you are. You consider yourself not being able to make it no matter what. Look at our history of who did make it. Look at John H. Johnson. Look at Frederick Douglass. He learned to read at age 21 by looking over the shoulders of his so-called master. Everybody in here should have read The Miseducation of the Negro. Everybody at Jackson State ought to read Mr. Peoples' book, How We Got Over. Black folks used to do a lot of reading. Reading is not alien to us. So what I want to say is, the trail of 2 sons, those are my sons. I am happy that neither one of them went to jail. I wish both of them had finished college. I was not expected to finish, and I've told my students this, I wasn't expected to go to high school. I was born in a shack in the Mississippi Delta by a mother who was unwed with 5 babies, by 3 different men. All right? Now, you've got brothers and sisters living who have that condition. They're put down upon it, down because of it. They feel they can't make it. So what we need to do is to be more positive. I'm not saying that the stats aren't correct, but let us not live just by these negatives. Do you understand? We can all make it, and I say, brothers, you are going to make it, and sisters, you get right behind them, and let's help them. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I feel really moved after hearing Dr. Griffin, so I'm really grateful for that. The way that I looked at this, I broke it down based on the topic and the title. So urban means that we're talking about a large city, as Dr. Griffin pointed out, versus a small town. And I would suggest that this is both national and local, right, Dr. McLemore? Because all politics are local. And that's not my word, by the way. A great political scientist once said that. And then when we look at institutions, I think it's important to recognize that an institution is not always a college or a university. An institution could be a home, it could be the government, it could be a church, or it could be a school. So institutions, we can look at that from a broader sense, okay? And I would also suggest that, yes, it is a catastrophe, but maybe it's also an opportunity to ring the alarm. Or as Mr. Batiste said, to ring the alarm because it's a state of emergency. And then it's national and it's local because all of those institutions that we talked about, home, school, government, church, exist in all of our cities, right? So I thought about the work that I do. And the work that I do is mostly related to students who are currently in school. And I do think that we certainly have to get students out of high school before we can make sure that we're retaining them in college. So I have to, in some cases, disagree with my brother and my old friend and colleague, Mr. Cassio Batiste, that partially the reason for my disagreement is that students actually have to test into GED programs now. And we started a English 2 workshop to help students who have not yet passed their state English exam, which is a requirement for graduation. We have students who are coming to these workshops who are not reading. Not they're reading on an 8th grade level, not they're reading on a 6th grade level and they're in the 10th or 11th or 12th grade, but they cannot read. So how do you help a student who is not passing their English 2 exam, has completed all of their other coursework, but cannot graduate because of one exam? What does that student then do? If they are fortunate enough to actually enter and pass the test for the GED program, they're still going to not be able to read. So they have the same problem because there hasn't been an intervention to solve that problem. So one of the stories that is near to me is that of a student who finished all of their coursework. They're done with school, but they haven't passed this English 2 exam because they cannot read. Another student who actually works probably 5 to 7 miles away from where he lives walks from his job at 10 o'clock at night when he gets off work back to his house. And that student also is having trouble reading. So how do we get to that point? And we've discussed some of that already. But what I like to do is to steal a note from Dr. Gray, and I'd like for all of the students to stand up, whether you are a middle school student, a high school student, or a college student. Now remain standing if you know someone, anyone, who has not passed a state test that's a requirement for graduation. If you know someone who has not passed a state test that's a requirement for graduation, remain standing. If you don't know anyone like that, sit down. I want y'all to look around. If you're sitting on the front row, just look back for a second. All right, you can stand up again. All the students can stand up again. How many of you all know someone who did not graduate from high school? Remain standing. Did anyone sit down? All right. And how many of you all knew or know that we're spending more on people who are currently incarcerated than those who are in school? Remain standing. If you didn't know that, you can sit down. All right. Thank you. Have a seat. I don't know about you all, but that was alarming, even though I wasn't surprised by the answers. And it hurts my stomach to think about the situation that we're in, where we have 200 to 225 students who haven't yet passed their state English exam at one given high school. And that's all across the state that we're seeing numbers similar to that. And I would submit that it isn't just the problem of the school, it isn't just the problem of the student, it isn't just the problem of the school district, but it's all of our responsibility. Everyone is responsible for that as a citizen. Because if we don't do something about it, then we'll have to tell our grandchildren that we didn't do anything. When we saw this, we didn't do anything. So not only do we have to beat the odds, as Dr. Griffin pointed out, because there are odds against us, but we have to change the odds through policy. It isn't enough to continue to say, oh, well, look at Oprah. Oh, well, look at this person. Oh, that person made it, so why can't you? Well, that suggests that systems don't work, and systems do work. Systems do work, whether they work for the benefit of us or against us. So we have to admit that, yes, some people have beat the odds. They've made it, and that's wonderful, and we want to continue to see that happen. But we've got to change the policies that make the odds exist in the first place. So, what are some of the odds right here in Jackson? Well, some of you may have picked up a packet that has some statistics on it. I think that maybe Dr. Griffin might have been whispering in my ear this morning about those generalizations and using statistics on a general level. So you have some statistics that are right here local. The Tri-County area, Hines, Madison, Rankin, JPS, all of those statistics are in your hand. We are the second largest district here in Jackson. DeSoto County is the largest. We're the only urban district in the state of Mississippi. Just like Jackson State is the only university in the state of Mississippi, which I'm a proud graduate of. And we have a mostly African American population within our school system. We have a poverty rate that's about 40%, and 85% of our students are on free and reduced lunch. So when we start looking at those odds, they don't serve us very well. As a matter of fact, there have been organizations that have done research to look at poverty rates and graduation rates. And when you look at those two maps for the state of Mississippi, the areas that are not graduating students are also the areas that are highly impoverished. So then we take a look at something else. Mississippi, or the state legislature rather, passed a law in '97 called the Mississippi Adequate Education Program, not the Mississippi Excellent Education Program. I'm an old English major, so words mean a lot to me. The Adequate Education Program. That has only been funded fully twice since it was passed. So when we have odds like a 40% poverty rate, 85% of our students are on free and reduced lunch, the second largest district in the state and the only urban district, it causes you to ask yourself a few questions, I hope, in terms of how can we beat these odds and what types of policies or procedures might we consider in trying to turn the ship around. Because it can't just be left up to those who were in the schoolhouse. This is a community issue. And I often say that when students decide that they're no longer going to graduate, or when they are pushed out of school because of the zero tolerance and discipline policies that they face, or when they can't pass an English 2 exam, I'm sorry, I'm a little worked up. it's very important that we understand how we can help change that problem. So what are some of the things that we can look at in terms of what we can do? One of the things I would say is, how dare we sit back and accept what has been given and say that it's okay for our children to have subpar education and then blame them for the outcomes. That's what we've been doing. Because in many cases, maybe I or we haven't been willing to be courageous enough, as some of our ancestors were, to stand up for what's right. And some of you all may not know this, but part of the reason why poverty is so important is because schools receive funding through property taxes. And so it creates a cycle. So you have students who don't graduate from high school, they don't go to college, where possibly, at least they have a chance at maybe getting a good job. If they do get a job, then they have a possibility of owning a home where they will pay property taxes. And then those property taxes go into the system that provides additional funding, so that if we don't receive all of the money that we need from the state, there's some cushion from the city. But when you have a 40% poverty level and you don't have very many homeowners, it makes that difficult. So we push our students, and I'm sure the students can attest to this, we push our students to pass standardized tests, to pass state tests, to pull up their pants, to sit still in class. But when will we push ourselves, challenge each other, to stand up for our children, to push for the resources and support that they deserve, and to provide the encouragement that they need? And how do we sit back and just do nothing when students make it to the 11th grade and they can't read? What interventions would increase the number of students being able to read before 3rd and 4th grade? We have to teach our teachers to be compassionate edifiers. And Jackson State students or community college students, don't go into teaching if that's not your passion. We need passionate and compassionate teachers, not people who decided to do it at a second chance or a backup. We have to provide additional training, and we cannot assume that because a teacher, principal, school board member, or any other administrator is black makes them exempt from upholding systems or practicing procedures or believing in cultural stereotypes that disenfranchise, harm, or hold back black males.
All right.
So what are we going to do? We can read. Really simple. We can read for ourselves, and we can read to young black men. We can encourage them to read. We can ask them questions about what did they last read? What was the last book that they read? And we can join together with families and read. We can talk to young black men and then listen. Just listen. We can give young black men an opportunity to be an entrepreneur and not just look for when is the next job coming down the pipeline, but teach them to be thinkers, critical thinkers, like Dr. Griffin said. We can provide opportunities for young black men to be apprentices. We can give them an opportunity to learn skills, or we can give them jobs. We can send them to college, pay for them to go. We can tell them that they are scholars, that they are creators, self-made trailblazers, inventors, scientists, artists, but most importantly, scholars. And we can stop making decisions for them without them that don't put them first. And with that, I'm going to close. I'm really grateful to have had this opportunity, and I'm really grateful to the Fannie Lou Hamer Society and everyone that put this together, because I hope that this will only be the beginning of a conversation, and I hope that it will continue. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to bring up the rear here. I appreciate the opportunity. I'd like to start my presentation with just a simple disclaimer. The views expressed here are mine, Rodney Washington, not those of the institution, the program, or its sponsors. This is a really passionate topic for me. I have a short PowerPoint that I'm going to run through. I'm going to stay within time frame, but you know, another side of it is that once you do these things, you give us 10 minutes. You know, it is kind of tough, but we're going to roll through it. A little bit about me. I chaired the Department of Elementary and Early Childhood Education, but prior to that, I worked in the correctional setting as a correctional officer, even was a prison sergeant at one point. I worked 4.5 years as a juvenile correctional officer, and I taught here in the liberal arts building. My master's is in criminology and justice services. So I spent half my career talking to young people, and in some form or another in terms of correctional counseling and all of that. But it is important to note that this is a serious crisis. This is a serious crisis. It is one that I think that we need to be well focused on. My mentor used to tell me that we should go where the research is going to be, not where it is. That we should project out and determine exactly where we need to go and what direction is this trend headed in, so we can create some viable solutions for it. So I hope my technology doesn't fail me, but in any case, I still have, my printout. So again, when we look at this thing and we start to really examine what's happening, I'm not going to bore you with all of the statistics, but those statistics are really relevant. Those statistics are really relevant in terms of how many students are we actually losing in terms of those students dropping out of school. John Carter says in his change model, in his book that deals with change, that the first thing that of any organization, before you can start any kind of change, there has to be a sense of urgency. That's step one. People have to see this as an important issue in order for it to actually manifest itself into any kinds of solutions. And so that's an important part. I like a lot of the things the presenters have already pointed out. I would like to say, though, as we get ready to start, I think that it is everybody's responsibility. I'm going to come from a university perspective. I think it's everybody's responsibility in terms of where exactly we need to go. It's not just placed at the foot of one particular body. It should be, in terms of Jackson State even, it should be an entire approach to what we're looking at. It's not, and I'm not going to bash Brother Baptiste, but it's not just the fraternities. It's the fraternities, it's the sororities, it's the SGA, it's the academic affairs, it's the departments, it's all of the units. Because speaking as a brother who pledged one of those fraternities, this was the best thing that could have happened to me. Because I was a Southern boy that really didn't know which fork to use sitting at a formal table, so it kind of helped me out. So I wanted to throw that in there because I want to throw in what Malcolm X says here. He says that usually when people are sad, they don't do anything. They just cry over their condition. But when they get angry, they bring about a change. And so you have to take note of that. So that's an important note. But I want to know what's happening with this. Here are only two statistics, stats I'm going to throw up here. Is that one, that when it looks at black male college completion rates are the lowest among all sexes and all racial and ethnic groups in the U.S., but black men are overrepresented in revenue-generating intercollegiate sports teams. Okay? In 2009, they were 3.6% of undergraduate students, but 55% of the NCAA Division I public football and basketball players. So how can we get them into these top schools for athletics, but we can't get them into regular admissions? There's a problem with that. There's an absolute problem with that. And so I was a little bit disappointed when I think that we have the focus on the wrong thing sometimes. I think we make everybody's an easy target. And so we make one thing the major thing, like when we started the sagging pants ordinance and all of that, it just seemed like we look at that, it's disappointing, true enough sometimes, but we look at that like that's a chronic illness that we can just never ever come out of. And we have to change paradigms on that. And so when we look at this debate over whether or not, we're relaying the right kinds of messages, are we trying to actually reach them? Are we trying to have the right kind of conversation to actually reach African American male students to get more of them in the building? Now again, I chair elementary and early childhood education in the College of Ed. I may walk into a class where there are 30 some odd students and 3 males.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about a shortage, particularly in education.
Yes, yes.
Particularly in education, we're looking at that deficit. So I get really passionate about when we start to have these kinds of dialogue. So oftentimes, the criticism is so heavy toward life choices that young males make that in other cultures it's like youthful indiscretions. You know, oh, they'll grow out of it. It's not such a big deal. And so they eventually do. But we keep looking at it just because your pants are down, you're just going to end up, then it can end up being that way too. And so we have to watch how we're relaying information. Now my terminal degree on the other hand is in early childhood education. And so they had to teach me to be a little bit nurturing, which was a problem coming out of the correctional setting. So I despise courses like methods and material and making the bulletin boards and all of that. But we know you got to get through the program. You just got to get through the program. So you know, it's quite a challenge when we were looking at. So we had to learn in that particular program is what you say matters to a young person. That you can't make personal statements to a young person that'll stick with them for life. Everybody in this room can think of something that a teacher or somebody told them that was disheartening to them as young as they can remember, and it's still with you. That's right. And so we have to watch the message that we're relaying. So I like what Mark Anthony Neal writes in New Black Man, this phrase here. You can't see I'm going to read it to you. He said, you know, this is part of the reason I love this phrase. He says it shouldn't be surprising then that many black men protect the privilege of being black, male, educated, and financially comfortable with the veracity that in the worst form creates an animosity toward the image of the hip-hop thug that rivals the animosities expressed by white racists towards blacks. Did you get that? That sometimes we can look at young people with such contempt because we don't think they're dressed appropriately and all of that, and we think it's just a blow against the whole culture. You see, instead of going to them, we just push them away because you're just not acting in alignment with everything. You know, it's just so out of proportion. But should that be the focus? Should that actually be the actual focus if we're trying to be solution-oriented? If we're trying to be solution-oriented, that's the big if there, though. So let's look at the dilemma. I like one study that points out it's not just access we should be dealing with, because it's persistence. It's actually persistence. What about the students that are actually getting into these programs? What are we doing to keep those? We put such an emphasis on those who are not getting in to relieving the ones that's gotten in. And so we have to start looking at these things in terms of persistence and not just access. And so some key factors here, we've already mentioned most of them. Finances, family background, prior schooling. There's other things that I'll revisit. Progressive conformity, which is really dominant peer influence. Skill and ability, and social and emotional support. And so when we look at that progressive conformity, that's a stickler. And that's a stickler here, even here at Jackson State. Because when we get those students that are coming in with those specific deficits, and we're not working with them, they can sometimes change the climate of your university.
They have to change the climate of our university.
And so when we don't really do those things in a manner that's really supportive, we can create a culture that we're going to have a university filled with students that are such high need that we may not be able to meet their needs. And that's not the intent that we're working from. So what can we do? I told you I'm trying to be real brief here. What can we do? So here's what I think we can do. So research and evaluate. We need to interview some of our students here on our campus to see, how did you make it here? What were some of the barriers that you faced but you overcame, and how did you do that? And determine what kind of success trends can we relate on and make it usable. Then we can actually redefine and implement our own programs here at Jackson State. Now those gentlemen on the first row over there working with me on the Black Male Initiative. Wave at them over there, brother. They're all in the fraternity too. And so we're working on this initiative to try and do some things here at Jackson State. And so what we're trying to do now, we had a bunch of focus group with black males here on campus, but here's the thing. The students that really need to be there were not there.
Yes.
The ones that are always actively involved are always coming. So we're trying to get to a situation where we can go meet those students that, you know, we may have to sit up on the walkway or sit up in the student center or somewhere and really have these conversations so that we can refine our own programs. Because what we learned from the groups that came was simply the stuff that we think was working wasn't working. The things that we thought were really great programs that look great on the website, they don't think they're so hot. And so they don't use the services, not proactively at least. And then so we can implement some new strategies that are really practical. Some new strategies that are practical that these students can really work with. And then we can reevaluate and report out. Because if it's going to track, what I'm trying to do right now is track a group of students now, including the incoming freshmen, and try to see if I can get some support for that. But I think that everybody has to do their particular part. But we're all wanting the same outcome, but we're going about it in different ways, but we're sending the wrong messages. We have to be uniform in terms of what we want to accomplish and how we want to get there. It's not enough. I agree with what the sister said. It's not enough to just say, well, this person made it and that person made it, but they're looking at their own models in their own community, and that may not be a positive model. You see? And so we got to create something that they can put their hands on and not just act as if these degrees are so unattainable. And their school is so unattainable, and it's so hard, and so difficult. It's like I tell my students in the department about practice. Stop telling students how hard the test is and tell them something positive. You see? And so it gets to be an issue. And so as we move through this, I appreciate it. You know, my recommendation, we need stronger pre-K-20 collaboratives that will recruit and allow a smoother transition into higher ed, not just for science programs, but for all disciplines. Bridge programs that get students set up to come through. We need population-specific first-year experience. So when students get here, and you know how we go through that honeymoon period where everybody's doing what you ask them to do, we need to hit them then with what we need them to do, instead of letting them just wander. Active support groups and mentors for a holistic approach to well-being. We have all these services on campus. We need to make sure students understand what they're for. Exit interviews embedded in the withdrawal system to determine, in large part, why our students leaving. It shouldn't be that students just withdraw from class. There should be something they have to fill out or do to give us an indication of why this student is quitting. And so I think if we work together and put our heads together on some of these things, then I think we can get somewhere. But again, these kinds of dialogues will start the process, and I appreciate the opportunity. How did I do, Chief? All right.
Let's give the panel members another round of applause. Again, let me thank the professors for inviting the students to come. We have time for 2 questions. Right here. Yes, sir.
My question is for
Please stand up. Yeah, come on, please.
My question is, Rodney, your name, okay. If they're dropping out, what makes you think they're going to come do a paperwork to drop out?
So what now?
What makes you think they're going to come do?
Well, there's a withdrawal process that the university has for a student to withdraw from a course or to keep from having a balance. You may not catch all of them, but you still can have a process in place to where students, to where just like everything else is hinged on something, that there can be a process in place that in that process that we can embed some sort of interview.
But if they already decided to quit, why would they do more? Too quick?
Well, most times students don't just, in a lot of cases, students don't just quit. They go through the formal withdrawal process. You know, some just may stop going to class depending on when they, but if they've been formally admitted, they most times formally withdraw. So I'm saying put the process there so we can at least have some sort of exit.
Okay. Yes, in the back and then down there. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Dr. Umar Johnson is an expert on black males. He's on YouTube, Dr. Umar Johnson.
Okay, so go to YouTube and find you. Okay, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
My question is, in all the programs that we have for development of men, how do y'all try to reach out and get more men involved? Because as a freshman vice president, I don't see a lot of freshmen in here that's not in class. And how do we reach out more and to them to get us involved more?
Well, one thing that I do, my program is always from working with young men from elementary all the way through college. Well, I provide a summer camp for, because sometimes it gets hard for, young men to do a lot of volunteering. Well, I do group mentoring where we do activities where invite groups of men in, but also run a camp I run an all-boys camp, and it's pretty much probably the only all-boys camp in the state. Where I actually have guys like yourself and other individuals who want to come and participate to serve as mentors for a group of men. But I think also I do mentor myself, so I don't wait, for a large group to participate with me, and so pretty much that's how I provide those activities.
Let me throw this out. I co-chair, along with Dr. Cheney over there, the Black Male Initiative here on campus, and we're now identifying the male leadership on campus. And we're really emphasizing this platform. This particular year, I've already met with your SGA president, and we want to emphasize that these leadership posts are about more than coronation. And so we want to really try and get here with a real platform this year. So I need to see you after this.
Okay, and then I know some of you really would like to get a copy of Dr. Washington's presentation, and he's going to tell you where you can get it, where you access it, I'm sure.
Yes.
Doctor, can you tell them now, or you want to tell them later? Can you tell them?
Yeah, that email, if you email me, I will send that directly to you.
Okay, good. Yes, I saw a hand. What's it? Yes. Yeah, we're right here. Yes, sir. Did you have your hand? No, sir. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I know the young man. Oh, the young man here from yes, from Blackburn. Yes, absolutely.
How can you reduce the percentage of dropout students?
How can you reduce the percentage of dropout students? Okay, Ms. Davis? Reduce. Yeah, reduce.
I think that that is an excellent question. I think it starts with you. I think part of it is you encouraging your friends and your classmates to stay in school and to graduate. And then I think it's up to us as adults to share with you what some of the benefits are once you graduate from high school. I do think that we need way more interventions for students. So if a student doesn't do well on that 3rd grade language arts test, do you remember taking your 3rd grade state exam? Okay, so some people, they take their 3rd grade state exam, and if they don't score well, they get help. Well, that's not happening everywhere. So we need to make sure that when students, we need to use the test for more than just a barometer. We need to provide intervention after the test has been taken.
I'd like to say this, young man, is that you all become encouragers of each other. You understand? One of my grandson's in junior high school. He's been smart from a little bitty child. I've told him, don't let anybody tell you it's wrong to be smart, to be intelligent. They call him a nerd. Don't worry about that. You keep being smart. There's nothing wrong with being smart. But you're going to have to help yourself too. Be positive with each other. And you have people who are from certain backgrounds, be positive for them too. If they are from some kind of poor area, a lot of us are from poor areas. And I want to say this, we kind of forget that when the other people came over to America, they did not speak the language. They did not know English. Their parents could not help them. So the teachers had to help. And when you talk about black education, remember how black education started and who were our teachers. You had a lot of us being taught by people with 5th grade education, 8th grade education, okay? But really those were very, very highly educated people when you think about it, with some of them getting down. You understand? But I'm just so into this as encouraging because I am the mother of children. And let me tell you another thing. Don't be afraid to let a woman tell you something positive. I brought 2 of you through me. Okay? So also, don't just think people with education. I got 4 degrees, but my grandmother, who did not have a junior high degree, she had more wisdom than I have right now. Okay? Keep in touch with old, informally educated people that you know. Go talk to these old folk in the Delta. Don't put the Delta down now, please. Go talk to them and see what they can tell you that's positive. And they're going to tell you just keep on climbing, keep on, keep on. Look for the positive. If you've got 10 negatives in your life, 1 positive, go toward that positive. That's what I say.
Okay. Again, let me recognize, I think the students from Hines Community College came in, is that right? The Hines students here. Now, please, the Hines students, let's give the Hines students a round of applause. And then we have several students here from Jim Hill, too, and staff members, don't we? Jim Hill? Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah. Jim Hill is in the house. That's the way to represent. Okay, thank you. But we want to again thank the superintendent. We want to thank Keith Macmillan here, who did all of the activities together. And we want to thank Dr. Chamberlain for working with Keith and everybody else who worked with Keith. Thank all of you very much. And again, yes ma'am, please. Let's, Piney Woods, please stand, Piney Woods. Not only are they here, they're dressed up too. Come on, yeah, this is wonderful. Anybody else that I missed? Anybody from, well, we know Jackson State is here. How many of you from Jackson State are first generation college? How many of you? Show of hands. First person, yeah. Fantastic. Y'all stay here. Congratulations. Let's give the family members another round of applause. Thank all of you for coming. Thank you.